Good morning, everybody. Welcome on this beautiful Friday morning. Beautiful Friday morning in Cape Town, should I say. Welcome to Activate Her with me, Sally Goodwin, and to, I have an itchy nose, and to this platform for the Church Without Walls. And welcome. Sorry, I'm trying to just figure out what's going on here. I have little lights dancing all around me here in this space, and I don't know whether they are from reflecting off something, but I don't see how they can be. My goodness, okay, all of these little lights kind of dancing around me here, just amazing. And it can't be a reflection of anything. Anyway, sorry. ADHD brain, temporarily distracted, very distracted. Good morning, Anointed Anthea. Welcome. Oh, and welcome to Hadley as well. We continue to pray for his shoulder injury and that he will heal supernaturally quickly. Good morning, famous Chantal, beautiful Brigitte, all the way from Harrismith. I don't know about all of you. Heroic Hilda. Yes, my hills, can you believe it? I got spoiled rotten, can I just tell you? And some beautiful person gave me a gift voucher to go and have my hair cut, which, December and January, I'm just being honest here, December and January are always difficult months ministry-wise in terms of finances, because people just have so much else to spend money on, and so some beautiful friend gave me a gift voucher to go and have my haircut, which I'm very grateful for. And good morning, thank you, my gorgeous Anthea. And yes, Tamsin, good morning, my friend. I don't know about any of you. I am not a big New Year's Eve person. Okay, I'm just being honest here. I think New Year's Eve is, I think it's oversold, I think it's generally always an anticlimax. In my 55 years of living, New Year's Eve has generally always been an anticlimax. So I'm not somebody who believes that when the clock strikes 12 on the 31st of December, the one year, that you're going to wake up on the 1st of January the next year and just feel a whole lot better about life. I don't subscribe to that at all. And every day is a day that the Lord has made. So, but I have to just say this to you, that in so many ways, 2024 has been incredible. And good morning, Special Sonia. It's in so many ways, 2024 has been such a highlight. If I think of good morning, Natasha. Oh, thank you, my darling. Magnificent Milani, welcome. 2024 has been a highlight in so many ways. The start of Igero Prophetic School, and just being ordained by a GPA. There have been so enormous highlights, honestly. But on the other side of that particular fence, it feels as though 2024 has been one of the longest years. It just feels like it's been such a long year. And honestly, so I had this enormous treat of a gift voucher to go have my hair done. Good morning, Special Stew, welcome. Which was just such a treat. It's amazing to just be able to go and have it done and not have to be concerned about finances and things like that. So that was absolutely amazing, and that was such a high of this week. Oh, thank you, Chantal, my lovey. I know I'm so butterfly. I'm so all over butterflies at the moment. Even my shoes, which you can't see, have got butterflies on them. So that was such a high. But then, can I tell you what has happened between Wednesday and now? So this is this week's episode of Friday Feast, and Friday Feasts, however you want to. And since Wisdom Wednesday, can I just tell you what has happened? So we had our drains. We rent this little place, and it's kind of quite oddly built, and it has Courageous Conrad, welcome, and it has all these little weird nooks and crannies. It's lovely, but it has weird nooks and crannies, and it has this little sort of outside area where obviously it has a drain, because if it rains, somewhere for the water to go, all of those things. But our drains blocked. and they blocked to the extent that we had sewage bubbling up into this little outside area, which then seeped through into my office. I'm like, when it comes to hygiene and that, I'm a little bit OCD, I'm just going to be honest. And so having sewage bubbling up and kind of coming into all these little nooks and crannies in the outside, luckily it didn't go into the rest of the house, but it seeped into my office so badly that I had a little carpet under my desk, and we had to throw the carpet away. That's how bad it was. I mean, it was just, I was just like, oh, Jesus, really, Jesus. So anyway, my husband is a plumber by trade. So he managed to actually, good morning, Special Sam, unblock the drains. And then we got plumbers in as well, just to make sure that everything was unblocked and everything. Because, over the festive season period, it's very difficult to get anybody to come out and do anything. So that was the one thing. And then my mum, people, I need you to pray for my mom, please. My mom is 86. She's amazing. If I think of what she's been through, she hasn't had the easiest life. And she's, here she is at 86, but she has, I had to take her to the doctor yesterday. She has a lesion on her leg. And the doctor's very concerned about it, concerned obviously about, and she's very thin, my mom, she's very skinny and frail, and he's concerned because it's right on her tibia, on the bone in her shin. And so he said to me that I have to get like the first appointment I can get for a specialist in the new year. And my mom she's 86. She gets a government pension. She has no medical aid, like so many of the elderly in our nation. I'm so aware that she is, I'm so aware that she is in a similar situation to so many of the elderly people in our nation. And my heart breaks for her, and it breaks for all of those people who just need medical attention. And anyway, so please will you just pray for my mum. She's 86. Things like this impact her enormously. And and then my mom-in-law, Flynn's mom, my mom-in-law has just had to have knee replacement. She's 85. She's just had to have a knee replacement surgery, and she is, at 85, and she's struggling with pain. And so if you could all just be praying for my mom and my mom-in-law. Sorry. It's hard, eh? It's so difficult when your parents, particularly, if I think of my mom, she helped with the boys. Good morning, Joyful Jackie, after, my divorce, and she lived with me, and she fetched and carried the boys, and she was this strong, woman, organized and doing things and helping out. And she was invaluable to me while after my divorce, while I was single. I worked, and she was such an enormous help to me. And now, she's just so frail. And and so while we're doing all of that, can we also just be praying for Hilda's mum, my gorgeous Hilda friend? Her mum's also not well, and that's where Hilda is at the moment, with her mum in Bloemfontein. So if we could just be praying for her mum, and let's just be praying for for that generation, our parents, and just for God's grace over them and over their lives. And let's just be grateful for what they have brought, what they have brought us, the wisdom that they have brought to this world, and how often they are just kind of cast aside. And can we just be praying for them? Radiant Renewal, welcome, my lovely. So I'm kind of ready for 2024 to be over. I'm like, okay, thank you, 2024, it's been good, but can we move on now, And I just also wanted to just sound a little warning. This time of year, it's already started and it will continue. There are so many words for 2025 released, prophetic words for 2025. And I often think back to the prophetic words that were released for 2020 and how, what actually happened in 2020 was nothing like, and I'm speaking about, prophetic words released by prophets or prophetic people who have an international platform or whatever the case may be. And so let's be discerning about the words that we listen to and the words that we receive for 2025, because it's just what I and my not mine, but the sort of prophetic company that I'm a part of, prophetic company that I work within, we see God moving mightily, and we see the more and more of the new wineskin being revealed, and we see people stepping into that new wineskin and stepping out of places of difficulty and places where they are not free, places where there's no liberation. We see that, an enormous move in that direction. We see more exposure. We see more of, if you look at what has happened with, the government's falling now, you have these drones over America that nobody seems to know where they've come from, and now apparently they're over Britain. Just these, like, the weirdest things, like you just kind of think to yourself, oh my goodness, oh my word, my Elsabe friend, I'm so sorry. Oh, Elsabe, praying for your heart, my lovely. I'm so sorry. Elsabe just lost her mum. Yeah, we just pray for that generation, that God's grace would just be poured out on them. So 2025 is going to be an incredible year. Like every year, because every day is a day that the Lord has made. Every year is a year that the Lord, saw come into being, and we are grateful for that. But let us not take our eye off the ball. Let us not, let us not kind of sit back and relax and think, oh, well, let us remain fully armored up in Jesus. Let us remain with our discernment, on point, our discernment focused on the things that Jesus is calling us to focus. Let us go into this new year, fully not laid back, not taken aback or sideswiped by things that the enemy might bring about, but let us go into this new year ready for whatever it brings. Joyful Jolene, welcome. Mighty Melanie, my lovely, good morning. And and let us be grateful. Let us be grateful for where we live. I'm speaking to those of us from South Africa, or even in Africa, the African nations. Let us be grateful for where we live, and let us just have our hearts open to what God is doing in our nation, on our continent, and what He has for the future for all of us. Special Sonia, all the way from Stroosbaai. Welcome. Yes, amazing, anointed Anthea. Yes, 2025, many testimonies. I absolutely agree with that. Radiant Renelle, welcome. Oh, Renelle, you've asked for the online prophetic school details. I will send those to you. Okay, anyway, so if you are excited about the end of 2024, then I'm with you. Okay, so we are going to carry on with Matthew 24, because we still haven't gotten to the end of this. And we are going to carry on with Matthew 24 today, and I'm seriously hoping that today we will finish this so that we can carry on with other things. See the reading glasses, people. I can see so far now that I can't see close by. Okay, right. So where were we? We had read about the fallen bodies and the corpses where the vultures and the eagles gather, right? And about the signs of the sun being darkened, etc. We know that will all happen when Jesus returns. And so we are in Matthew 24, verse 30. And he says here, and this is all very clear. It's very clear that Jesus is speaking about his second coming. Okay, it's very clear. These verses that are coming here are not anything that has happened previously. Jesus is speaking about his second coming, and that is what we just look towards. That is not a point of fear or worry or concern. It is a point of, yes, Jesus, you are coming back, and we cannot wait. So then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth. Isn't it interesting how it speaks about tribes? If you watched my live from the other day when I spoke about what nations, the way nations has been translated, and how, you know, it actually means, speaks more to people groups rather than nations. Our idea of the delineation of nations, which hasn't, the map hasn't always looked the way it looks today, and so our idea of what a nation is not necessarily the way a nation has always looked, and it's actually more about people groups. And here Jesus speaks of the tribes of the earth. Thank you, Sylvia. The tribes of the earth will mourn and beat their breasts and lament in anguish, and they will see the Son of Man. I mean, if these verses don't make you emotional, I know I'm a bit emotional as it is, but honestly, this makes me so emotional. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory in brilliance and splendor. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect, his chosen ones. That's us. From the four winds, even from one end of the universe to the other. And then Jesus moves on, because, he liked to speak in parables. So then he moves on to talk about the fig tree, and it's almost as if he's going off piste. He's digressing the way I digress, but it's not. He's using the fig tree to explain something to his disciples. And he says, from the fig tree, learn this lesson. As soon as its young shoots become soft and tender and it puts out its leaves, you know of a surety that summer is near. And again, we need to remember that these were times when people didn't have clocks and calendars and, and weather watchers, what are they called? The weather people. Can't think for a moment. They didn't have the weather on TV every night being announced what it's going to be like tomorrow, weather forecasts. They didn't have, people who knew from however long exactly when summer was going to start and exactly when, they didn't have those things. And so they looked out, like in Jeremiah, when God says to Jeremiah, what do you see, Jeremiah? And he says, I see the almond tree. I see the almond tree budding. That in Israel means spring is here. And it was the same with the fig tree. They looked to the plants, they looked to nature, they looked to the sun and the moon and the stars, to forecasters, thank you, Anthony, to determine what was coming. And so Jesus spoke to them with those ways. Jesus didn't say to them, well, if you watch the news on ETV at 8 o'clock, the weather will follow shortly afterwards, and then you will see that summer is coming. He said to them, look at the fig tree, because when you see this happening with the fig tree, you will know that summer is near. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, please like and share. Thank you very much. So he says, you will know of a surety when the fig tree's shoots are soft and tender that summer is near. And then he says in verse 33, so also, when you see these signs all taken together, coming to pass, you may know of a surety that he is near at the very doors. Okay, so then we immediately think, oh, well, if we look at all the signs on the earth and everything that's happening right now, he must be right next door. Okay, he must be about to put his foot through the door. But then he goes on to say this, truly I tell you, this generation, and the Amplified Bible actually explains what generation means. Good morning, gorgeous Geraldine. Meteorologist, thank you, Melanie. The Amplified Bible explains it like this: the whole multitude of people living at the same time in a definite given period will not pass away till all these things taken together take place. So the disciples, he's speaking to the disciples here, right? The disciples fully believed that Jesus would return before they died. They believed that they would not pass away before the return of Jesus, and we know that that didn't happen. But when you go and you look at the meaning of that word generation, or you look at the original Greek or Aramaic and the way that word generation was translated, the actual inference for when it's used in verses like this, where we know that it didn't mean an actual generation, because we are how many generations further on from that space. The actual meaning, the inference from the word here in the Greek or in the Aramaic is more an age. When this age will come to pass. So in this, and I love the Amplified Bible, you all know that, but in this particular instance, the Amplified Bible isn't very helpful in translating generation as a fixed period of people, because that wasn't what it was. That wasn't what it was at all. It was, and again, we are reminded that God is outside of time. That 1,000 years is like a day to the Lord. It tells us in scriptures. It's not, that 400 years of silence between Malachi and when the angel appeared to Zechariah, that 400 years of silence was like a morning to the Lord. It was like he briefly sat down and took a breath, and then there we were again. So it's God is outside of time, and things that feel like an age to us are not an age to the Lord. And so that word used there, translated as generation, and helpfully actually as generation, it more speaks of an age as the Lord defines an age. And we know that, we have had earth ages, we have had, all different, you can look up all different ages, but it speaks of an age that will pass before Jesus returns. And Jesus goes on to say this: sky and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Sky and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. And then he says in Matthew 24, verse 36, but of that exact day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. So actually, the way he says all of this, if you read this, all of what we're going to read through today, it almost comes across as a little bit contradictory, because he's saying to them, the way you see the fig tree when it buds in the summer, then you know summer is here. That same way, when you see all of these signs that I've spoken about, all taken together, because various of these signs that he has spoken about have happened previously on the earth. We know this, we've spoken about it on previous lives. So it's not like some of these things haven't actually happened. The only thing that hasn't happened is Jesus hasn't returned yet. Okay, so now he's saying, if you take all of these signs together, all of them together, then you will know that the Son of Man is returning, that he's almost there, he's right at the door. But a whole age has to pass, an age that is an age in the eyes of the Father, and we don't know what that looks like, before he returns. And his words will never pass away. But at the same time, nobody except the Father. In this verse, he says that he doesn't even know when he's returning. Now, we don't know whether when he went to be seated back with his Father in heavenly places, whether his Father shared that with him. But in this verse tells us that not even Jesus, at this time when he was speaking to his disciples, knew when he was returning. Not even he knew when he was returning. So, so how the angels don't know, the Son didn't know, only the Father knows. Only the Father knows. So then he goes on to verse 37. As were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. As were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For just as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, men marrying and women being given in marriage, until the very day when Noah went into the ark. And they did not know or understand until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. So Jesus talks about how life will go on. Life will go on as per normal. If we look at, he says, as were the days of Noah, if we look at what was happening on the earth in the days of Noah, wickedness was increasing, lawlessness was increasing, all sorts of terrible things were happening on the earth. I'm pretty sure we can say, well, yes, okay, we might be a bit ahead technologically, but we're in the same sort of time. But people carried on living their lives, and then the flood came. Even though Noah had been telling them for about 120 years that the flood was coming, because it took him about 120 years to build the ark, even though he had been warning them and they had watched him build the ark for 120 years, you can understand that, after 10 years when nothing happened, and then 50 years when nothing happened, and then 100 years when nothing happened, people were like, really, you must be crazy. But after 120 years, here came the rain. And here came the flood, exactly as Noah had prophesied it. But it didn't happen like that. You know, he didn't start building the ark on Monday and the flood came on Friday. It wasn't like that, which is why he had to persist and he had to stay true to what God had called him to do, because it didn't look, for a very long time, it didn't look like any of what he had prophesied or any of what God had told him was actually going to come true. So, and then we go on to, so this is all Jesus saying, that, you know, life will carry on, the things will be going on in the world as per usual, and then I will come, and, you know, it will be just as in the days of the flood, where people are just living their lives, and here I come. And then we get to these verses. Oh my goodness, these verses. Matthew chapter 24, verse 40 and 41. It says, at that time, 2 men will be in the field. One will be taken and one will be left. 2 women will be grinding at the handmill. One will be taken and one will be left. Now, I want you to, if you don't just read that verse, if you read everything that Jesus has said, what has he told us? He has said that he will send his angels out and they will gather the elect, right? He has said that he's coming back. All of these verses are all occurring at the same time. This is not one thing happening here and then something happening over there. So yes, his elect will be gathered. Yes, there will be the trumpet call will sound and the angels will gather his elect at the time that he returns. Not separately, not in some separate kind of escapist day, you know, Jesus is going to just, you know, take his church away and say, oh, well, all those bad, nasty people can just, you know, die in their son on the earth. You know, when in ancient Israel, when Israel was judged by the Lord, and the prophets were the ones who spoke the judgment, who said, if you do not turn from your wicked ways, this is what is going to happen. This nation is going to come take you over. You are going to be sent into exile. This will happen, that will happen. The prophets who prophesied those things, they didn't escape it. God didn't say to them, oh, well, now you've brought the word. Now we'll just take you away. You know, my poor person. Here we go. They went into exile. They went into exile with their people. They suffered with their people through the judgment of the Lord on Israel. Because they had a job to do. They had a calling to walk out. They had a purpose to pursue. In good times, bad times, difficult times, hard times, they had to stay true to what God had called them to do. God wasn't just going to leave Israel with nobody to speak truth or speak what he had to say or speak his love over them or speak his judgment over them or whatever the case may be. He didn't just whisk them away and say, oh dear, no, you don't have to go through this. I mean, if we look at the deaths of some of the prophets in the Bible, in the Old Testament, Isaiah was put into a tree trunk and sawed in half. That's how Isaiah died. They put him in a tree trunk and sawed him in half. And this happened before he had even seen all of his words come to pass. And he still hasn't seen all of his words come to pass because a lot of his prophecy was eschatological, so it was for the end times. But that is how he died. And so this, if you read Matthew 24 from verse when Jesus starts talking about returning right up until the end of it, you will see that Jesus talks about it all as one happening, that he will return, his chosen ones, his elect will be gathered together. And yes, and even that verse that people quote constantly about the one being taken and the one being left. So I think, and this is just me, okay, I don't know if you've read the Left Behind series or you've seen the movies or whatever. I just think that those things are very unhelpful. They're very unhelpful. And because scholars don't even agree on who will be left behind and who will stay. Because depending on how you translate those verses, some scholars translate it that the ones who are being judged will be removed, and the ones who are free from judgment, as in they are God's chosen ones or his elect, will remain. And then others, and can I just tell you that initially it was all very much kind of one will be taken, you know, and the bad person will be left behind. But not too many scholars or theologians agree with that anymore. They believe now that actually it will be the evil or the bad or whatever it is, the way we look at it, person who will be taken for judgment, and the others will be left behind. So you cannot build a whole theology. You cannot build a whole theology around, like, I think 3 verses in the Bible. You cannot build a theology around 3 verses in the Bible and then quote scriptures like God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten son. So you are telling me now that God doesn't love the world anymore. All of these unsaved people, all the lost and dying world, he's going to whip his church out and just leave them to suffer and die without any hope or grace or mercy. Just, no. I will talk about this some other time, but anywho, so it goes on like this. So this is what he says. So we focus so much on that. Hey, we focus so much on that. Like, one will be taken, one will be left behind. And our whole focus is that. What does Jesus say? He says, watch therefore. Give strict attention. Be cautious and active, for you do not know in what kind of a day, whether a near or remote one, your Lord is coming. In other words, stop worrying about who's going to be taken and who's going to be left behind, if that even happens. Worry about and don't worry, but be concerned about the fact that Jesus is returning. And every single day that we live on this earth, we get closer to that return. And we need to prepare for that return as if it was going to be tomorrow. We need to prepare for that return as if it was going to be tomorrow. It doesn't matter if he comes back next week, next year, next century. That doesn't matter. We are called to live with an eternity perspective. And that eternity perspective involves the fact that he is going to return. So it says, understand this. And then he uses another parable to try and explain to his disciples what's going on. Understand this. Had the householder known in what part of the night, whether in a night or a morning watch, the thief was coming, he would have watched and would not have allowed his house to be undermined and broken into. Now Jesus is comparing himself to a thief. I mean, there was no limit to the way he tried to get his message across to his disciples. Now he's comparing himself to a thief. He's saying, if you knew that someone was coming to break into your house, you would be on guard and you wouldn't allow it to happen, obviously. But he's coming like a thief in the night. When we least expect it, because then he goes on to say that, you also must be ready, therefore, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not expect him, which means that we cannot prophesy exactly when Jesus will come back, because Jesus says quite clearly he's coming at an hour when you do not expect him. When we least expect him, he's going to return. When you in fact, he's taken how many verses to try and tell people that nobody knows when he's coming back except the Father, that he's going to come back like a thief in the night, and that he's going to come back when we least expect him to. So maybe we need to stop worrying about when Jesus is returning and instead live our lives every single day in preparation for that return, which means that whether he returns in our lifetime and we get to stand before him in our lifetime, or whether we step into eternity first and we get to stand before him in eternity, either way, we need to be living lives that warrant his return and us moving into eternity, whatever that looks like. And he goes on to say, who then? And these are the verses we need to pay attention to. Never mind the other verses about one going and one staying and all the rest. These are the verses we need to pay attention to. Who then is the faithful, thoughtful, and wise servant whom his master has put in charge of his household to give to the others the food and supplies at the proper time? What is he saying? He's saying who? Who are the people that God has put on the earth in charge of his household, in charge of his body, in charge of his church, to make sure that the others have food and supplies? And obviously you can read that in the physical and mean food and supplies physically, but also spiritual food, spiritual supplies for his people who will need that. And then he goes on to say, blessed, Happy, fortunate, and to be envied is that servant whom when his master comes, he will find so doing. So blessed be those who when Jesus returns, he finds his servants, his sons and daughters, his children, doing what he had called them to do. Feeding the body, preparing the bride, making her ready for his return. Blessed are those that will be doing that when he returns. He says, I solemnly declare to you, he will set him over all his possessions. Then he goes on to say, he will set him over all his possessions. Once Jesus returns, we step fully into that ruling and reigning. But we don't get to rule and reign in the heavenlies if we haven't been able to steward what God has called us to do on the earth. Then he says, but if that servant is wicked and says to himself, my master is delayed and is going to be gone a long time, and begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with the drunken, the master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour of which he is not aware, and will punish him, cut him up by scourging, and put him with the pretenders, with the hypocrites, and there will be weeping and grinding of teeth. So what does Jesus say? What does Jesus say? Jesus is saying this to us people at this time on the earth, when all of these things are happening and nations are crumbling and governments are falling and weird things are being spotted in the skies and all sorts of things are happening. God is saying, I am coming back. Stop worrying about when it's going to be and start living a life that is worthy of me coming back to. Start preparing my bride. Feed my sheep. Feed my people. Build my body. Build my church. Get the bride. Get my bride ready. Make my bride ready. Focus on that. Focus on that. Because I don't even know when I'm coming back. I'm going to come at a time when you least expect me to come back. I mean, if we think about the season that we are celebrating right now. Okay, think about the season we're celebrating right now. If we just read the history of Israel in the Old Testament, then we read Malachi, then there was this 400 years of silence, and then after 400 years of silence, the angel appears to Zechariah. So 400 years, the Israelites have not heard God's voice. They have not had any prophets to speak his words. They haven't seen the angelic, which was very normal to them. They haven't seen those things. They haven't seen any signs and wonders. They haven't seen any miracles. They have seen nothing for 400 years. And what has happened in the years of silence is religion has taken a firm hold. So no longer are they looking to the Lord because he has been silent. They are now looking to religion, and religion has taken a firm hold of the Jewish faith. It has taken a firm hold of the Jewish people, and they are living their lives in bondage to religion, and they are waiting for this promised Messiah to return. And then what happens? After 400 years of nothing, the angel appears to Zechariah. Zechariah is a priest in the temple. He comes from a priestly lineage. Elizabeth, his wife, comes from a priestly lineage. He has drawn lots and been selected to be the one to go into the Holy of Holies. They have gone into the Holy of Holies for 400 years, hearing nothing from the Lord. Now they go into the Holy. He goes into the Holy of Holies, and the angel appears. And what does Zechariah say? Oh, really? I don't see how that can happen. I'm paraphrasing. He didn't say that exactly. But he's like, really? Are you sure you are who you say you are? They haven't seen an angel for 400 years. They haven't heard from the Lord for 400 years. And suddenly here appears this angel, and the priest, the very one who is supposed to be able to recognize the things of God, is the one who's, no, I don't know. And the angel's like, I'm just going to strike you dumb so that you cannot speak negativity over what God is going to do. So that you cannot speak against this and then somehow make it not happen. Okay? He strikes Zechariah dumb. It's all there. We've all read those scriptures millions of times. And then and then John the Baptist is born, and then the angel appears to Mary. So they have nothing for 400 years, and then suddenly they have all of this angelic activity, okay? And then Jesus is born. Why then? Why then? Why 400 years later? Why after that period of silence? Why did God decide to send Jesus then? We don't actually know. We don't actually know why God chose the time that he did to send Jesus. But Jesus came as a baby out of nowhere, effectively. And because he came in an unexpected way, because he didn't come like a conquering king with his legions of angels and decimate the Romans and free Israel and make them the nation they want or have always wanted to be, because he didn't do that like that, they didn't recognize him. Now, it's not going to be the same with the second coming. We read enough about the second coming in scripture to know that every eye will see, every tribe will know, every person will know that Jesus has returned, okay? But in the same way that they weren't expecting the Messiah to come then, is the same way that we are not going to be expecting him to come. In fact, and this is just my own personal opinion, but sometimes I wonder whether all the prophesying about when he's going to return makes him not return then, because he specifically says that he's going to come when we least expect it. So if we're all expecting it, then maybe it's like, you know what, I'm just going to wait another 1,000 years. Because, you know, our focus is not supposed to be on, and again, and I'm going to say this again, and honestly, I will do this rapture theology talk one day, but I'm going to say this again. The book of Revelation is the revelation of Jesus Christ. It is the fact that it happens to unfortunately be called apocalypse or whatever the case may be. It is the revelation of Jesus Christ. It is not the revelation of the Antichrist. It is not the revelation of the mark of the beast. It is not any of those things. It is the revelation of Jesus Christ as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, who is going to return for his bride at some point, a time that we do not know. But we, as a body of believers, are so focused on who might be the Antichrist, or who could be this, or are we in the tribulation, or is the tribulation coming, or will we live through the tribulation, or will we be taken? You know, if we live consistently and constantly ready to either receive our Messiah, our conquering King, when he returns to the earth, or to step into eternity if we move from this life into the next before that happens, if we are ready, if we are doing what God has called us to do, living lives God has called us to live, you know, and not thinking, oh, well, it's taken him so long to come back, I'm just going to live my life the way I choose to for a while, and then, you know, whatever the case may be. If we are doing that, it doesn't matter when he comes back. It doesn't matter if we go to meet him before he comes to meet us, because we are ready and we have done what he has called us to do, and we have prepared the bride and we have made her ready and we have fed his sheep. You know, when Jesus said to Peter, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? And Peter said, you know I do, Lord. My goodness, my lights are going out. And Peter said, you know I do, Lord. Jesus didn't say to him, oh, okay, well, I'm going to tell you when I'm going to return then. Or, well, I'm going to tell you who the Antichrist is going to be. And that's why John, in the book of Revelation, used such apocalyptic language. It's actually a description of the way many Hebrew writers wrote at that time. They used very apocalyptic language to get people's attention. But God could have said to John, you could put in the word that this person will be the Antichrist, but he didn't. Because he's God. And we don't need to know all those details. All we need to do is live lives that are ready for him. When Jesus came, when Jesus was born to Mary and Joseph on the earth, the Jewish people were not ready for him. They were not living lives that were ready for him. Their lives had totally become about religion and not about God, because there had been this silence for so long. And so they were not ready for Jesus when he came. They were not ready to receive him when he came the first time. And can I tell you that if that verse in Matthew chapter 7 is anything to go by, where Jesus says many will stand before me and say, Lord, Lord, we have cast out demons in your name. We have healed the sick in your name. And I will say to them, I know you not. Many. He doesn't say just a few. He doesn't say 10 people will stand. He says many will stand before me. Many. Do you know what that means for the church? Do you know what that means for us? That within our churches, within our ministry spaces, are people who sit in church every Sunday or attend every conference or come to every event, but they don't know Jesus. Maybe they think they have been saved. Maybe they think they have been saved, but they haven't. They don't know Jesus for themselves. And not just the people who sit in churches, but people who are doing the Lord's work, or what we think is the Lord's work, casting out demons and healing the sick. But they don't know Jesus. They don't walk in intimacy with him. They are walking in whatever gifts and callings God gave them, because those are irrevocable, but they aren't walking in intimacy with Jesus. Because one day they're going to stand before him and he's going to say, I'm sorry, I don't know you. And there is no verse in the Bible that impacts me more. There are that verse and Psalm 68 verse 11. Those are the verses that I consider to be my life verses, because I know that I'm called to raise up an army of women. And I know that I'm called to the church. Not the church as in the man-made religious institution, but the church of Jesus Christ, the body of Christ, to make sure that those people who think that they have bought their ticket to heaven are not deceived or confused. Because one day when we witness people standing before Jesus and Jesus saying to them, I know you not, I don't ever want there to be somebody who says, but I followed Sally. I listened to her. And you don't know me, Jesus? Ever. If I can tell you that is the verse that lives with me, that is the verse that brings the fear of the Lord into me, if I can tell you that is the verse that every time I sit on this platform, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, when I sit here and I speak to all of you and I preach the word of the Lord, can I tell you that my prayer every single day is, Jesus, let your words be spoken and not mine. Jesus, let me have clean hands and a pure heart. Let what I say be your truth. Let there never be a single person who follows me or knows me or is part of the Church Without Walls or comes to Agero Prophetic School that stands before you one day and says, and you say you don't know them. Let me never, ever in my whole entire existence point people anywhere but to you. But to you, to the truth. Let me never preach the easy messages that don't confront people. Let me never be scared to speak the words that you need spoken so that your people are called and caused to arise and awaken. Because honestly, I would rather know that each and every one of you is receiving the Lord's discipline and the Lord's rebuke and the Lord's chastisement if it is necessary. I would rather know that that was happening because I was preaching truth rather than having to witness one day people who followed me and Jesus saying, I'm sorry, I don't know you. I am not your answer. I simply am a mouthpiece for the Lord. I am a mouthpiece for the Lord. I simply preach His words and His truth. The only answer is Jesus. We can see, can we not, around the earth right now, how God is proving to us that financial institutions are not the answer. Governments are not the answer. Making sure that a specific president or prime minister is elected is not the answer. The only answer is Jesus. The only answer is the Son of God who came as a suffering servant all of those 2,000 odd years ago, who came as the Lamb who was slain, who came as the suffering servant, and who is going to return as the conquering King, as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, as the one who rules nations with an iron fist and breaks them apart like pottery. He is the only answer. And if that is the only thing you remember over this season, as we go through this festive season and into the new Gregorian year 2025, if that is the only thing you remember, then let that be the only thing that you focus on. That no man, no preacher, no prophet, no pastor is the answer or has all the answers. We all see in part. We all bring in part. We all do our part. But the only answer is Jesus. The only answer is the Savior. The only answer is the Messiah. The only answer is the Son of God. And no matter what happens to us in our personal lives, how difficult life is, no matter what happens to our nations, to our governments, to our people, Jesus remains the answer. And we get to live this life in Him and for Him. You know, the original scripture wasn't written with chapters and verses. And so immediately after Matthew 24 comes Matthew 25 and the parable of the 10 virgins and the parable of the talents and the Jesus saying, that what you do for the least of these, you do for me. And let us be more concerned about that. Let us be more concerned about how we are stewarding what Jesus has called us to steward on the earth than be concerned about prophesying when He's going to return. Let us be more concerned about the eternal legacy, the eternal kingdom we're building, than anything else. Matthew 24 on this Friday feast has come to an end. Who knows what Start Your Week with Sally on Monday will bring, but I'm excited to see what the Lord has to say. I love you all. Bless you all. Have a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend, and I will see you on Monday morning at 7 a.m. Love you. Bless you.